What's going on, Jerk Faces? It's your boy, Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. But we're having it during the day because we're doing a pre-tape, because Robert has a messed up schedule.
It's always my fault. I know.
Right, exactly. That's my very sly way of, indicating that it's your fault.
Yeah, well, that's the motto of the show. Is it's all Robert's fault. Yeah.
It's not just a conversation you can have at night, but it's always Robert's fault.
Right. It's the sub motto.
It's the subtitle of the subtitle. But anyways, how's it going, Rob?
It's going pretty good. We're doing the pre-tape, but I had today off, which is great. Just to get a chance to relax, do some. I've been working on reviewing or watching the movies that we're going to be reviewing here pretty soon. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that, and then also kind of just watching some movies that I was like, I don't know why I've never seen this film before, or just movies I've been curious about, so I decided to watch them. And I've just been movie binging today.
Nice. Yeah, and you, it's weird because, you also experienced a little bit of a power outage where you are.
Yeah, well, we've now. At work, we've had two major power outages within a couple weeks of each other, where it's like we had the power was gone all day long. Like it was gone, no power, which is kind of, which sucks because there's really nothing to do when there's no power. I mean, I find stuff to do, but it's like, I'd just rather go home at this point. So there's that. Then, just recently, before we started filming, all of a sudden I'm like getting all the stuff together, getting all that, and then, like the power goes. I was like, fuck. It's like, well, that's not gonna work if if the power's out. But then thankfully it came back on fairly quickly.
Yeah, that was very fortunate that happened. It's like, it's pretty weird though. It's like, it's not as though, there doesn't seem any rhyme or reason to it. Like usually there's like, a branch fell and like knock down some lines, or there's some sort of flooding that happened, or there doesn't seem to be any explicable reason why it happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it is the technology that's out there for like the transformers and the wiring and all that stuff. It's at best maybe like 20, 30 years old, mm-hmm. and hasn't been updated. It's the energy companies have been heavily regulated as far as what they can do. So I mean, essentially it's it's the government running it, which mm-hmm. Because the government makes everything better, right?
Of course, yes. Look at the DMVs.
Yeah, and because of that, there's companies themselves that are supposedly in charge of all this stuff. The companies are so regulated to the point it might as well be the government, and it's been a disaster. It's been a disaster even going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, that was, I think the governor before Schwarzenegger, I think it was Gray. I mean, that was the whole reason why they kicked him out of office, was because of this energy. There was an energy issue. Like they
right. Oh yeah, that's why they had the recall. Yeah.
That was the main reason. It was this energy problem because they fucked over so many people and it's been a problem ever since. And I guarantee that nothing has been updated or from that time. Guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean that just sounds likely.
Now, I'm not saying that based off of any like solid information or evidence, but based off of like what I've like from news that I have heard over that period of time, and knowing the government the way that they are, it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me.
Right. I mean, it's the only logical conclusion you can make, based on available evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we were just talking about, or at least I, before we started, I put out the theory that just like back a few weeks ago when the whole, Santa Ana winds started happening. And they said to mitigate the chance of wildfires, that they were gonna be shutting off the power to certain areas of California. I think more predominantly in the north, but I put out the theory that it's like, are they doing this so that people could be conditioned to get ready, or to prepare them and to condition them to think that it's normal to have like these rolling blackouts. When eventually the energy infrastructure does finally succumb to age and wear. And
Yeah,
you agreed with me that that could be the case.
it would not surprise me in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, you even have. I mean, it's the same problem with the roads. That
The
it's
what?
the state of our roadways. I mean, they're in such
Oh yeah.
all over the place, and they're always constantly doing construction in places that like never finished. And a lot of times, what's happening is that they will repave one road, then they'll rip it up a couple weeks, a couple months later, repave it again, and they keep doing the same thing over and over on the same road, yet not working on roads that have that desperately need it.
Uh huh.
And
That.
what the problem is, what's going to happen is what's with our electricity is like what's been happening with the roads is that people are so fed up at this point that they're going in secret at night, and people who know what they're doing are going and fixing potholes and actually fixing the roads, to which they could actually be thrown in jail for and the penalty is very severe.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna get to the point where there's competent electricians who are like, fuck the government, fuck what they're not doing anything, we're gonna fix it, and it's gonna take that to actually get it done.
Right. This reminds me of that old show, the Drew Carey Show, and there's this one episode where
right, yeah,
he had just gotten a new car, but then like there's this huge pothole on his street, and like he hits it like so much that like it wears out his tires, it messes up his shocks, it just kind of messes up his car, kind of like the death by 1,000 cuts because of that pothole. Right. And so, like, he finally gets, so fed up with it that he himself goes and, like, fills it with, like, sand, but then he gets arrested because, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, and the reason why that is unions. And all the money that's supposed to be going to repairing the roads, to repairing the the power lines, all that stuff, all that money is going into administrators, politicians, and union pockets. That's all, and they're taking all that money and keeping it for themselves and fucking everyone else over.
Right. God, what was I just about to say? Oh, about the roads and being like, I remember like the street outside of my place. I think it was like at least 2 years since they tore it up and like repaved it and all that stuff. But and then just recently, actually, they all of a sudden have to like tear up a part of it, just so they could like put in some new fangled thing or whatever. And it's like, why don't you guys coordinate this thing? where
Yeah,
you see that there's like repairs that have to be that are eventually going to have to be come up. So why don't you just like um, move up the timeline on the repairs and just repair a little bit earlier when like the roads are being torn up, instead of having instead of ripping up the roads and then repaving them and then having to come back in and like jackhammering and ruining part of the road just so you can put this repair in and then like fill it back in, and so like you have like this weird like patchwork, or there's like that rap song a few years ago, ice cream paint job, which which refers to a car that has that might have like a yellow front end, a red door, and like this like kind of like rust stained
yeah,
roof. Um, so yeah, and so you have like that kind of situation going on, which it just makes it look ugly.
yeah. It's and but the thing is, like, you're using logic and reason. That's why like I'm so against like relying on the government for everything. It's like I think we could do this better ourselves,
Right,
and
like
like
the localities. Why, like why don't you like yeah? So why don't like neighborhoods be in charge of like streets and things like that? And so like if there's a repair, it can be done quickly and without like having to go through the government and through all this red tape and in this bureaucracy. When it could take 6 months to for the city to come and fix it, but it'll take you only like 2 weeks.
exactly. And it's like the thing is like okay, it's we don't need all that stuff. Like you obviously aren't spending the money where it's supposed to be at. You're it's lining the pockets of some corrupt administrators, lining their pockets. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of giving the money to them, why don't we just use it ourselves and yeah, get it done. It's like it's
Yeah, I mean,
and it
just
kind of takes
instead of paying taxes,
out
just go, have a collect, go, why don't you go and like have a collection around the neighborhood? Say, hey, can you, spare a few bucks, so we could, rent a, a dump truck and like, hire like a crew to come and fix the potholes in our street. So, oh yeah, here's like, here,
of
here's a fiver.
Yeah. And listen, I'm all for like following like, we do have certain safety guidelines for a reason, and like we have to, there's a certain amount of like, oh, we had to have, for like weight limits, and like how we had to like pave the roads and all that stuff. Like I'm fine with us like following all those regulations, but
Mm-hmm.
if the government's just going to like sit on their feet and do nothing, it's just like, why don't we just use the money and do it ourselves and do it the right way the first time?
Yeah, and and just, I constantly go back to this example, but it's like, why do you think that we're having so many wildfires these days? Back when I was a kid, I can scarcely remember a time that there were there were wildfires, let alone like in the valley.
They,
You know,
here's
and
one thing,
it's
Andy.
because of the government regulation. Because of like the clean air standard that they have. It's like where you can't like where that's why they don't allow for burning off the underbrush that that grows out of control, especially like after like a big rain and stuff. If like if if we were allowed to clear out the overgrowth in the mountains, or just around our where we live, then it would or and do a little backburning, it would totally decrease the amount of wildfires that we're having nowadays.
Well, and there are several factors in that too, Andy, because you have the stupid EPA regulations that California follows, so that causes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
They have essentially because the logging industry used to kind of help clear out the underbrush and all that stuff. but
Mm-hmm.
they've kicked them out, and not only did they do it, but they did it for free because
Right, because it was just part of the process where it's like, oh,
right,
we can't get to the tree, so we have to clear this stuff out.
yeah, unlike how it's they're portrayed on like Captain Planet and stuff, where like they're smothering owls and like you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, where like
unlike
what was it, like the big like bulldozers come by and they there's like like a nest of birds and then like it blasts like smog in onto them, and then
yeah,
when it's cleared, like they're nothing but skeletons.
yeah, exactly, and that's the cartoonish way that the left thinks of the logging industry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of the the same way that they view hunters is like these guys are actually conservationists. They obviously they don't want to clear out every single tree because well then they're out of a job, dummies.
Right. Yeah.
So
Or like yeah, of course, like they're not when hunters go out for a season, they're not their intent is not to kill all the deer. It's only to kill maybe like one or two deer because
yeah.
like two deers that'll give you enough meat for like at least like a year and a half, 2 years.
No, I just want to kill deer and throw it in the dumpster. It's
Right?
like
I know. It's just like
because a
I mean,
lot
yeah, they're like
and
that.
so,
I mean, if you're shooting just for the sport of it, then yeah, you're kind of being an asshole. But you're still helping with the conservation of the deer because you're limiting. That's one less deer that's going to take up resources for like maybe like younger deer that are being born or what have you.
younger deer and other like parts of the animal population that are that are overrun or killed by deer. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
but because everyone is manipulated by Bambi and Captain Planet, they think that these people are all evil,
Mm-hmm.
terrible people. But that's my point. So you have the logging industry that's been kicked out from kind of taking caring for the forest because the Forestry Service isn't allowed to do anything. You have over regulation, and all this like over dead undergrowth, and while wildfires are a natural occurrence, you have the problem where there are sometimes like the one in the Getty, they're calling it the Getty fire. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was started because a transformer exploded and like the
Right.
sparks
Yeah.
flying,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which goes back to our last problem. It's like, but you also have a lot of these places where the uh, the insane homeless are building these trash fires or whatever, or they're smoking crack or smoking cigarettes, and they just throw their um, stuff, their embers or whatever, get kicked up, and then they start these giant fires, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, but that's they don't want to think beyond that. It's like, oh no, it's global warming and all this terrible. It's because we
Right.
don't
Right.
care about the planet. This is the
Mm-hmm.
planet's dying. Blah blah blah. It's like, no, 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 no. You're just not doing anything. You're sitting there on your ass, and you don't. There's. It's kind of like how you take a look at a house, right? And you can live in a house, but if you let's say like you left that house for 10, 20 years and no one was occupying the house, you come back, it is in a state of decay. There's cobwebs everywhere. The paint starts to warp. The wood starts to warp. It's dingy and
Right, and
it's
like the grass is overgrown and I'm sure like the tree's roots have worked its way into like the plumbing or
exactly.
and yeah, it's just like
And
that's
our
it's not maintained. It's not there you're not conserving the environment of the house.
right, and it's the same thing when it comes to the environment and our utilities. We have to take care of that stuff. Otherwise, this is what happens.
Right, exactly.
And everyone was up in arms, saying like, "Oh, Trump, he's such an asshole! Like, how dare he like mock the Forestry Service in California?" It's like he's not wrong though. It's
Yeah.
like that's the thing. Like, oh, well, okay, then show him how he's wrong. I would love to see that.
Right? Yeah. It's like yeah, exactly. It's like so. Tell me how eliminating cow farts is going to save the planet. You know, it's
And
like
it's just
I could show you, I can show you how burning away like undergrowth and maintaining like our forests that will keep us from having wildfires on the regular, or hospitalizing actually like deranged like homeless people will keep our streets safer and cleaner, and prevent and also prevent the random trash can fire from getting out of control. I mean,
yeah,
because there's like there was that fire near Balboa Lake, and it's like, and then and it was like in the area where that there have been like documented like homeless encampments, and
yeah.
and people are saying like, oh yeah, it's just like some stray ember from one of the other fires that came, and like it's like, are you fucking kidding me? What's more reasonable, like an ember from a fire that that happened like 30 miles away, was carried on the wind and then dropped exactly in the spot where there's been known to have
but it was
homeless
it was still
camps.
burning at that from 30 miles away.
Right, yeah. And it just happened to start a fire in the exact place where there have been documented, homeless encampments.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's like I'm gonna call bullshit on that one.
yeah.
Oh boy. So yeah, California is it's a dumpster fire because of our state government is the worst.
Yeah, just look at Gavin Newsom. Like, look at look at all the policies
He should
that
be
he's
throwing
like
out Humvees.
enacted, or like he wants. I don't know if it's passed, but like he wants to give illegal immigrants health care.
I didn't think there would be anyone worse than Governor Brown, but here we go.
Yeah, Governor. Yeah, Governor Moonbeam. Oh, jeez. Yeah, but I mean Newsom is he's a deep state insider tool, and he comes and he's dynastic in that because his aunt is freaking Nancy Pelosi.
Are you serious? I didn't. No way.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom is the nephew of Nancy Pelosi.
Oh my god. I had no idea. Oh jeez. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, look into it. Look into it.
Well, I was gonna
Right.
say like at least to say one positive thing about Newsom compared to Jerry Brown. At least at least Newsom wasn't part of the Jim Jones cult.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that he's you could say Newsom is part of another cult, the cult of progressivism. But I know that's a stretch. But like, yeah, but
it's
Jerry Brown, he had documented links to the Jim Jones cult.
you see him like in a lot of pictures with the group.
Yeah, like with his arm around him and everything.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why he didn't go down to South America with them is because he was in politics at that point.
Right, so, and then like someone with half a brain in his staff was like, don't.
It's like I think you should stay here, sir.
Yeah. It's like you're gonna hate it down there. All the humidity and the bugs.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, someone with half a brain on his staff was like, sir, I don't think it's a good idea.
But yeah. So yeah, California's on fire. Mainly because it honestly has nothing to do with the environment. It's bad upkeep. It's bad maintenance of.
Yeah. So like in a way, like the Democrats were bad stewards.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this is the. I mean, obviously, not necessarily just to bring the Bible into it, but yeah, we're not fulfilling our duty as mankind, which we are meant to be stewards and care for the earth.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, wishing puppy dogs and rainbows and saying that the world is going to end, that doesn't do anything. You actually have to, um, you know, do upkeep. You have to actually do work to not just um, talk about solar power and wind energy and all this shit that doesn't really, in small doses it works, but it's not like we can't create a whole you know
Right. I mean,
energy
yeah, like with
grid.
solar, there's you got like it's only really applicable for 12 hours a day.
Right.
Right, and then I mean, unless you're gonna create battery technology, but then that's like this whole new thing that you have to create from scratch. It's not as it's because we already have like the infrastructure for gasoline and natural gas and coal and all that kind of stuff, and those are proven winners. They're proven winners. But now
Well, and
you're
it's
saying that you want to create this new industry. You create it, not improve upon it, not augment it. You have to literally create it from nothing.
and listen, I'm all for like, hey, let's try some different forms of like energy. Uh, but like everyone's talking about how, oh, we need to have more electric cars and solar power this, and it's like, the batteries in those damn like hybrids and electric cars, once those go bad, they have to replace those, and there is no way, at least as of yet, that we can't recycle those batteries. They go in a landfill and they don't
Right,
disappear.
and then they leach into the ground, and then poison the groundwater, and yada 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 yada. And
Yeah,
and then what you think you're doing is helping the environment is actually more detrimental to the environment than than a fuel than a gasoline burning car.
right. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I've because this is obviously like this is the nomenclature that's always used, but they always talk about how oil is called a fossil fuel. Why in the fuck is it called fossil fuel?
Oh, because it's supposedly made from the decayed remnants of ancient plant and animal life.
What?
Yeah, that's what they think. That's what they think it is.
Uh, that sounds like horseshit to me.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
That's how it
That's
sounds.
why they call it fossil fuel because they think it's made from the decayed and decomposed remains of ancient plants and animals.
You have got to be shitting me. Well, okay, based off of that, now I understand why they think it's a limited resource, not something that's a natural occurrence.
Right, but I mean, technically, it is natural because it's a natural process over time. Which again, they need those millions and billions of eons so that they could say like, oh, see this process that happened, back when there was dinosaurs and they died off, and then their flesh and organs and whatever like decomposed and then was capped in the earth, and then it was squeezed, and it was constant like layers and layers of earth got onto it and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until all this pressure and heat, and then it created oil.
Oh God.
Right, and they think that people believing in a man hang being crucified on the cross came back to life is crazy.
That is one of the most insane ideas I have ever heard in my life. And no one thought like, you know what? This sounds a little bit fantastical. Bullshit even.
Right, and I mean it's like
And no, the crazy
they
thing,
put this
no one
theory
questioned it.
out about fossil fuel, but there's no way to test it.
Right. Well, that's well, and that well, if we're gonna go down this road, it's like this is why I don't believe in macroevolution is the way it's stated in biology and many other science classes is because, well, there's no sense of like, because it always, it's the shifting goalpost, if you will.
Yeah.
Whereas it's, say, okay, well, there's no like missing link. There's no these fossils of the in between, as the because if it's over long periods of time, there should be some sort of fossil record of showing how the creature has transformed from from fish to monkey or whatever the fuck that they call it. Is well, actually, it does happen in like really rapid bursts. It's like, okay, well, which is it? It can't be both. Is it?
Right. It can't
Is
be.
it like?
It can't be a very long period of adaptations and mutations to. It's like, oh, it can happen within a generation. It's like, what?
Yeah, well, okay, and it's like, okay, well then, and because it's not something that it's not something that can be recreated as a scientific test. You can make it whatever you want, and it just, that's why, like, to me, once you start digging deeper and asking questions about all that stuff, it starts to not make sense.
Right. Wait,
And
were
I'm
you
not just
serious about the like? Did you really not know why they called it fossil fuel?
I had no, to be honest, I had no idea.
Really?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Huh. Even
Because,
though like
and
they talk about it all the time, how like you never realized why they called it fossil fuel.
I mean, I figured it had something to do with, like, I mean, they're using fossils, so I guess I assumed that, but they throw all sorts of names at shit, and it's just like, oh well, that's just the term, and they don't expect anyone to look it up, and I guess I just never did.
Oh, okay.
I thought, or maybe I thought like what it. I guess maybe what I was thinking is that, like, oh, it's like, oh, it's old. It's like, it's tired. We need to get rid of it. It's like a dying fossil. It's that, and it's
Oh,
like, maybe it's like we need to move on to new energy. Like, go
okay.
always
That's
trying to do
yeah.
something.
That's not a terrible interpretation.
But God, that's actually a lot smarter than like whatever the fuck that they believe it is.
Yeah, I mean, like them referring to it as fossil fuels, like, oh yeah, that's the fuel of the past. We're looking for we're looking towards like the new fuels. Like, yeah, so I can understand. Yeah, I can see how like that interpretation could apply.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I always assumed. That's why, like, I never really question it.
Mm-hmm.
But I, I figure it's like
yeah. So
I can't.
yeah, we learn new things every day.
Yeah. There we go. Well, I didn't expect us to go talk about this. It just
Right. I know this is like, again, we like sometimes we plan this. These are one of the days where we're just kind of flying off the cuff, and look, we talked about really interesting topics. Talk about what is it? Power outages. The failure of centralized government planning. The idiots. The sheer impossibility and stupidity of fossil fuels, or at least the theory on like where it comes from. Uh, I don't know about you. This is like the most entertaining thing I talked about all day, and probably the most entertaining thing, the most interesting thing that you're gonna hear all day today.
yeah. Well, that actually ended up being better than the rant that I was gonna go into. This is actually a hell of a lot better and more interesting.
Yeah, but all right, let's go to like at least one plan thing that we have.
Well, yeah, let's talk about your thing, because I'm really curious about what your thinking was
Oh,
concerning,
right, right,
because you
right,
have
right.
some more concerns concerning Kanye and his new album.
Right. Well, not about his album per se, um, but just some interesting things that kind of caught my attention about this whole thing. And as some of you out there know, recently Kanye, made a big splash in media and in culture when he proclaimed that that he was a Christian and that Jesus is King, and like his new album or single are titled as such. Um, and everyone, especially Christians, were kind of like celebrating, saying, "Oh yes, fine, yay, we have like this huge influential person coming out as a believer, as a Christian." And if you caught last week's live stream, me and Robert, we both expressed our hopes, doubts about Kanye, but I think we both came to the conclusions like, well, I hope he's earnest. I hope, I hope that he's not merely doing this for uh, attention, or like if he's just if he's just like unless I hope that he's not just like coming to this faith and like as we as people who've been Christians a long time would call it, like a spiritual high, and be like really on fire, but after a few days it would kind of like fizzle out. But certain things that have caught my attention have really made me question the sincerity of Kanye's recent profession of faith. Like one of them being like him selling clothing, marketing clothing with Jesus socks and shirts with like crucifixes on them. And it's like this doesn't seem right. Like he's saying that Jesus is King, and he's saying like, oh yeah, I come to believe that everything in the Bible to be true, but it's like, but now he's like he's basically branded himself, or he's using the crucifix as like a brand, and that kind of troubles me. Um,
He wouldn't be the first, and he definitely will not be the last to do that. I mean,
right, but I mean, the less kind of
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
But the less like scrutinizing mind might then associate Christianity or Jesus with a $25 sock, or like a $200 shirt. It's like, but then it's like, and so it's like, and again, a more questioning or discerning mind might say like, well, how is this exactly how is this like $200 T-shirt related to Jesus? Like what is it like what's the tie-in here that and then it could jade a lot of people, or um, and it could it's just like it's like, and it just might raise a lot of questions like, well, how are you any different now than when you were supposedly secular and a child of the devil?
And part of me is like, I have a couple thoughts based off this too, because me, I'm always very skeptical of, yes, a lot of those pastors who get like really big, and like they're on TV, and they're selling stuff, and I'm all for like, hey, it's there's guys that like they write books and whatever, and which is it's totally fine. Like, obviously, like it is your profession and stuff, like, and Kanye, like, he's not new to selling clothes. I mean, he's done that in the past.
Right.
Obviously he's a musician, so he sold music in the past. So obviously, he's doing what he knows, and putting a Christian spin on it, I guess. Like, as and that's not foreign to Christianity throughout the ages. I mean, that's happened many a times.
Mm-hmm.
But I like you. I'm always a little skeptical. It's like when it's like, oh well, hey, if you like what you hear here, buy this Bible that I'm selling, or the Jesus is King T-shirt, and it's like, well, and I think, yeah, it's a little on the edge for me, where I'm like, oh God, I kind of bring that out later. It's like I'm not
Well,
saying like
because yeah, because also the other thing is like,
I'm not saying
if
don't make a living, don't do like what yeah, I'm not saying like I don't want him to make a living and to like make money. Yeah, I mean it's I think we constantly think that like Christians always have to live in poverty, and like if we do anything to earn money, that we're
Mhm.
like we're just doing it for the love of money, and we're evil and all this stuff, and we should always be like poor among the poor, trying to lift each other up, and it's like that's ridiculous. Um, but if especially for someone who is trying to overcome some of his past demons, and
Mhm.
a love of the world, in the sense where yeah, money's a big part of that, or trying to um I don't know, like whatever he's doing, um is it falling back into old patterns, or is there a positive message behind what he's trying to do?
Right. I
And
mean, if he
I
comes
don't
out and says like, "I'm going to take all the proceeds from like my clothing sales, for that the tie-in to my record and like donate that," and I was like, then I'd be like, okay, cool, he's doing that at least,
well, I
But like
don't
this
think
guy's
that
already like, if not a billionaire, he's already a millionaire. So it's not
yeah.
like he's hurting for money.
No, I'm saying, and I honestly, I don't even think he has to do like all the proceeds are going to like this or that. It's
Right, neither am I. But then at least, but then if he does come out and say that, I'll be like, okay, props to you for doing that.
right.
But it's just like, but still, it's like, but then like if he has to come out and and make the clarification or whatever, then it's just like, it just kind of like takes away from the message a little bit. Where it's like,
Well,
oh, like if you're truly changed, if you're truly like a new creature, creation, as in the Bible says, like when you profess faith and all that stuff, then your actions should be crystal clear. But the actions that I've seen so far have just made it like the matter more indistinguishable. Especially like him like starting like his Sunday service or whatever. It's like it seems very exclusive. Very it's like he's essentially starting his own church. And again, that's on the surface that doesn't seem like that bad, but there some of the imagery it's a little disconcerting.
yeah, it's one of those things like and I don't know his mind or his heart. Maybe it is in the right
Right? Yeah, I'm
place.
not. I'm not trying to say that I
But
know Kanye's heart or like what his intentions are, but from
yeah,
from from the outside perspective, it's a little disconcerting.
yeah, like, but my point was like, is he being like the church members from the Book of Acts, where it's all about like doing what we can to promote the gospel and to promote good teaching, biblical teaching, to kind of help bring healing? Or is it a situation like Ananias and Sapphira, who it's they intentionally are being deceitful,
Mm,
uh, not to not just for um, the people around them, but like to the church in general, and to God,
right.
more importantly. And that's where like we just don't know. But yeah, it does. If all what you're saying is like, if that's what's going on, it's like that's a little disconcerting.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's the only thing like I wanted to bring up um, concerning that. Just again, I'm not saying that I know what's in Kanye's heart or whatever, and if it's genuine, then yes, and prayers and let's lift this brother up, but just kind of like what is it like what Owen Benjamin had a great take about it. It's like you know, as much as we're celebrating that that Kanye's come out and declared his faith or whatever, we should be we should be excited. We should be just as excited if a homeless person comes to Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, it's great that someone of Kanye's renown is able to profess his faith and all that stuff, and if his conversion is genuine, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily. I said this before. I don't need Kanye's like fame and all that stuff. I'm still a Christian without him, and I can still share the gospel just as effectively with or without him, because at the end of the day, it's about God indwelling within us and sharing that message of good news to others. Doesn't matter if it's someone who lives on the streets or someone who lives in a giant mansion. The gospel doesn't change.
Word. All right, yeah. Well, that's all. I said my piece. That's all I got to say about it. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, I just said we'll keep our eye on it, and we'll pray for good things.
All right. Yeah, let's get into our movie review, which is a little bit different this week because we did have a little bit of miscommunication, and we're not going to have our regular movie review per se. Because every month we kind of have a theme, or we usually have a theme for every month. And for this month, it does still kind of apply then.
Yeah, it does kind of apply. I was just thinking that. Yeah, it does kind of apply to.
Yeah,
the
and so this month we're doing heist films, but and usually it's an older film. It's not a modern, or it's not a contemporary film. But this week it because of the miscommunication, and also because of the fact that me and Robert both went to go watch this movie at on the same day, but just at different times. We're going to review the latest movie to come out of South Korea, and that's Parasite.
Oh, God damn, it was so good.
Should I have this queued up?
Yeah, it wasn't one of our scheduled heist films that we have for the month.
Right, but yeah, just like thinking about this movie is kind of like a heist movie. So
a little bit.
It still kind of works. If you guys don't know, or if you've been living under a rock for the past month and a half, Parasite is the latest film from Korean director Bong Joon-ho.
Didn't he win the Cannes Film Festival this year?
Yeah, it won the Palme d'Or, which basically is kind of like winning Cannes, essentially.
Right. Yeah, and it was the first Korean film to do so.
Yeah. Just a quick synopsis on that. What is it? Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. Yeah, this is I'm just reading the first synopsis that I can find. Maybe I can find a better one, but that essentially is what the movie is about.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah,
it is. And this director.
But quickly, are we gonna get into spoilers? Are we gonna review the whole thing with spoilers?
We don't have to. I don't know how you want to do this, because there's a lot to talk about in this film.
Right, but I think I know, because
See, this is the problem with doing a new film, because
exactly, I know. Yeah, with older movies, it's like, who cares? The movie's been out, you should have watched it.
It's like 20
But
years old. Get over it.
right, yeah.
Okay, well, I will say this, and this isn't a spoiler because this is I watched after the movie. There was a short interview with the director talking about like his
Wait,
thoughts
where
on
did
the
you watch it?
movie. I watched it at ArcLight.
Oh, okay, that's probably why. I watched that at AMC.
But there was a short like interview with him, and it is like he deals with movies that have to do with like class struggle
Right, yeah. I
and
mean,
but he's
I don't,
and the
I can't
relativity of
remember a
class.
lot of his movies, but yeah, one of the things that I read up on was that a lot of his movies, yeah, deal with class issues. So.
His I think the one that he did before this was like Snowpiercer, and
Right,
it
and that
was
wasn't an exclusive. There were Hollywood A-listers in that movie, like Chris Evans and yeah, who was the other people? It was that I think like Octavia Spencer was in it.
yeah, there was actually some pretty big heavy hitters in that film.
Yeah, or at least American heavy hitters. But continue.
But yeah, and so and he's talking about how like he because this director, he's kind of the way I see him, because he's very meticulous and thoughtful, and like nothing is just like nothing is thrown away. There's nothing like kind of everything is he's very in control of what he's doing, and he has even talking about like how he wrote this screenplay. It took him he I think worked on it for about 4 months, and then he sat on it for a little while, just kind of like rereading it through and thinking about it to
Right. I
see
mean,
if it
to
worked.
use a culinary term, he's a very snout to tail director.
Right, and then he even like went through and he's big into doing like storyboards and all that, and he drew all the storyboards of the film, and it's like this is how I want to see all the scenes. And like I mean, he's really he's kind of like I mean, he seems a little bit not quite as much of an asshole, but he is kind of like Kubrick-esque in that sense, where it's like you're very in control of what's going on,
Uh-huh.
and there's no like throwaway line, throwaway scene. It's
Right.
it's all very
Yeah, it's very
planned out,
intentional, very planned out.
and so it's about like like where Snowpiercer was about like kind of like a vertical line of class,
Right.
where you have all the rich class up at the very front of the train, and the very low class at the back. It
Mhm.
was kind of flipped on its head, where it's like it's more of a vertical, where you have
You mean Parasite?
the family that lives in a house, that lives in this very nice house, especially for Korea. It's like that's a very nice house.
Yeah, very
Um,
big, very spacious, very open. A lot of
right,
like
and then
Western, a lot of Western style and Western influence in that house.
right, and then you have the I guess you could call them the protagonists, although I mean that's really
Right.
like that's
Or
really
like
stretching.
they're the protagonists, but they're not like the good guys. They're just like the main characters.
Right, so that they're living in this like sub basement, like small apartment where it's like they're literally crawling out from the ground to come up to this house,
Right. To get to street level, yeah, they're literally coming from the ground.
and so there's this, and there is always this constant like theme of class and like crossing the line that's used within the film,
Hmm.
and you have like although we're not really given too much history as far as how the that like the rich family like kind of got their start and like how they made their money and all that. uh we are kind of given some of the background, and like, with the other family, like they're um kind of con artists in a ways, and they're always trying to like scam their way through, and just trying to like survive, and you know by any means possible. And once they were able to kind of get a foot in with this family, they found a way to like kind of upgrade their hustle in a sense, and
Right,
they
because
constantly
like the opening scene of the movie, it's like they're so down, they're so down on their luck that their phone service was cut, and they had to rely on Wi-Fi from like the neighbors, and then it's like oh crap, the lady upstairs put a password on her Wi-Fi, and so there's a scene of the son like trying to find a signal, and then he goes in the bathroom and he's able to find where he's able to get the signal from a nearby coffee shop.
Right, right.
Um,
And so yeah, it's I mean that's how it starts too, and like they have bugs all around them, kind of
mhm.
playing off of the title Parasite, because that was definitely a very aptly used title for the film.
Right. I mean, because like because like the opening scene is like them being parasites, trying to get a free Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah.
So yeah, so not just like like metaphorical, but then also like literal, because like the house is like full of like these stink bugs that like the father like kind of recoils at, and
Right.
um, but yeah, this movie, yeah, like you were saying how like the Snowpiercer was like kind of like a horizontal view of like class. This, and again, you're also mentioning that uh, this movie was more about the vertical and like the ascension, and I thought it was very intentional, because like like how you were saying that they lived in like a basement apartment, and then this the family lived kind of like on top of a hill, but then also there was like a lot of stairs. Um, to this house, and like when the son initially goes to the house to have his interview with the mother, the Mrs. Park, he climbs these stairs and he gets up into like this open like yard space, and it's almost like him ascending into heaven.
Yeah, that was there. It definitely had that type of atmosphere, and honestly, it starts out with like I think good intention, because of all the family members, he seemed to be the most like kind, and like he didn't. Although like there's things that like he did too, where I was like, oh, it's like it kind of like it was a little cringeworthy, if you will.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, right, and I mean he was only there because he was helping out his friend, because his friend was the former tutor for that family, for like their daughter. Um, and he was heading off to study abroad, or something like that, and he asked his friend to well, he recommended his friend, but then also because like, oh, you're my friend, and like I like the daughter, and I need someone to like watch over her while I'm away, and you're my friend, so I'm gonna trust you to kind of keep the creeps away. um, but kind of I guess like the first spoiler, like the son, the new tutor, basically kind of uh, it's the what is it? It's the old saying like inviting the fox into the henhouse kind of situation.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. It almost seems like a little bit of like a Lolita situation too,
Oh,
because
well, yes, but again, yeah, like the culture is a little bit different, and well, she was like still in high school, right?
yeah, like a sophomore or something like that in high school. Like she was second year high school student.
Okay.
So we're
Well,
looking at
I
like
don't
maybe
remember
like
like what year she was in, but
I think it was like
um,
second or third year in high school. So she's maybe like somewhere between 15 and 17.
right. And he had already fulfilled his military service, so he
I'm
had to
thinking he's
be
probably like 23, because no age
yeah.
was actually really given in the film.
What was that?
No age was actually given in the film, but I'm assuming he was probably like in his like
Right.
early 20s, like 22,
Well, right. The
23.
only indication of age that was given was when him and the friend initially met up, so the friend could give the guy or let the guy know about the job opportunity, and
Right.
he had specifically mentioned that he had done his military service already, so that has to at least put him at 23.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming that's
Right. Okay.
how old he was.
Mhm.
But
It is a little bit. It is a little bit Lolita, but
because she wasn't like completely innocent
Mhm.
either.
Right.
But the whole situation was very odd. It was very weird.
Mhm. Right, and they put the caveats like, oh, well, I'm gonna at least wait for her. I'm gonna wait until she at least gets
Into university.
into university before we go public, basically. But they're still kind of sneaking around in the meantime.
Right.
But right, but then I think, and then after that, they have like this interaction with Mrs. Park's son, where he's like this kind of rambunctious youth, and he then has the idea of getting his sister in on the action, and but passes her off as a friend of his cousins who went to school in the States. And
Right, and well, especially because they are very like this family, like well, their son's fascinated with like the American Indians and like being a Boy Scouts and all this stuff.
mhm.
So he has an obsession with a lot of American things, and
Yeah, or like
so
Western
having
or Western ideas. Like he's very he you might dare say that this kid was a rugged individualist.
yeah, and so having his sister pass off as this like friend of his cousin who studied abroad in the United States. It's like, oh, that's very prestigious. It's
Right. Yeah. And it
because
wasn't like, and it's like this the school that he mentioned that she went to wasn't even like an Ivy League. It was just like it was a state school in Illinois.
yeah, it was Illinois State University.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. It was a state school. It wasn't. It wasn't like it wasn't prestigious Harvard or or Yale or Stanford.
Maybe it would maybe like having that would maybe throw up some red flags too. So maybe they chose a university that like you wouldn't really you're not going to question that. It's like, okay, well, I mean, it's prestigious because she's from Korea and studying abroad in America, which is not no matter where you go, it's not easy to do, and you have
Right.
to
And it's
have
not.
some
Yeah. And
sort
it's not available to
of
every
intelligence.
person. But then, but an interesting thing, because I did a lot. I was doing some research, and I listened to a podcast, talking about this, and it's like it's kind of like it also shows the naivete of Mrs. Park, because she's like she just hear like kind of spoilers. She kind of references a lot of like about the states, about like there's like the scene with when like the son goes out to camp during the thunderstorm, and the dad asks like, oh, is that tent gonna be okay? It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. I bought it from the States. So she kind of
Yeah,
has like she kind of fetishizes things from America. And so it doesn't matter, like, if it's not like a prestigious school like Harvard or Princeton or something like that. As long as it's like in the States, then she's like, oh yes, of course, the States.
yeah, that's I actually hadn't thought of that either. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right. But then it also goes like the idea of like fetishizing Western things, like particularly like Indians, like with the sun.
Right, and then so then you have like now that the sister's now in, then it's like, oh well, we're getting paid pretty good money, and so why don't we kind of keep this thing rolling? And they find a way to maneuver the dad's or the family's chauffeur out of the way.
Right. And I think
And,
this is the first. I think this is where you kind of stop kind of feeling sympathy. Well, at least for me, this is where I stop feeling sympathy for
yeah,
the
this is
Kim
where I
family,
stopped.
because they got someone fired, as opposed to them them there being this opportunity, like with the son, like the former tutor was stepping down, so the former tutor recommended him, so he was just filling an already vacant void, and then also like with the sister coming in, it's like they're creating like this opportunity, so it's not as though they're taking away from anybody. But I think this is the first step in which like they kind of like made me not feel sympathy for them, because they were, they purposely created a situation for someone already in the position to be fired.
Right. And
Which won't be the last time.
Which won't be the last time, because then they get this chauffeur fired under really awful circumstances. Then they have the dad come in to replace. They find a way to get their dad to become the new chauffeur. And then it's like, well, shoot, we already have 3 family members here. Like the next, we might as well make another spot.
Oh yeah, 3. So why don't we just make it a full set, make it a completely family affair, and they get the long time housekeeper fired, so the mother could take over. And and I think it's in the the way they got the driver fired was messed up, but because the sister was being driven home by the driver, and she removed her underwear and stashed it away, and made it look like the driver was taking advantage of the parks, and having sex in the car. But the way they ousted the long time housekeeper was they made it. The housekeeper had an allergy to peaches, and so they would shave the fuzz off peaches and dust it around her, so she will cause her to have an allergic reaction, which they then spinned it into her having tuberculosis.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is you think even because before, when it's just the brother and the sister, they're just filling a hole where they're this vacant thing, but then you go and find out they're acting this all out, every part that they play is all acted out, they meticulously go over how the parts are going to react and how the dialogue that's created, and you realize that the whole all 4 of them, it's a whole scam.
Right, and I think a little bit of the the meta-ness this part of the movie is that the son is coaching the father how to deliver the line, and the meta commentary is the actor that plays the father is a really well known actor in Korea. He's what was his name?
No. Yeah.
What is it? Well, yeah, he's he's basically he's their Robert De Niro, basically. And so the meta commentary is, or the meta joke is that the son is is coaching the father, who is the Robert De Niro of Korea, on how to act.
Yeah, that's right. I think that was pretty funny. Yeah, because he but yeah, it's kind of crazy, and this family of 4 has become kind of they've parasited themselves onto this rich family and are essentially using them for money.
Yeah.
See, is there anything else that we because not trying to give off spoilers, because there's a lot more to share, but I think I don't want to give anything away yet on this film.
Well, I mean, okay, well maybe we could talk about until maybe we should talk up until about the turning point, which I think would be about when they kind of when the parks go off on a camping trip for their son's
Yeah, we
birthday.
definitely have to stop there
Yeah,
because
we'll
otherwise,
stop there. We'll like give it some time for people to watch the movie, and then we'll revisit. Or we could do, or this could be kind of like a tie-in to like the main podcast episode that we're thinking of doing.
yes, because I think we are gonna like talk about this more probably on that, and we'll definitely dive deeper into the film. But
Right.
this is just a initial.
Yeah, this is kind of like, yeah, we'll just do up until that point, and like it's hilarious that they have like this kind of party at the park house, and they kind of and they just kind of like infest. They infest like parasites. They infest the house. They take up residence at as it were, and the son makes a very interesting comment about his sister when he's like, oh yeah, when I went to give you the water and you were watching TV in the bathtub, it's like, man, you really look like you belong there. Um, I thought that was a pretty interesting comment. It's like, it's like, oh, you belong there. It's like kind of like, we're infesting this house, that doesn't belong to us, but we feel like we really deserve it.
Yeah, and there's all this constant like fantasy
Mm-hmm.
to this family, and they're always kind of thinking about and fantasizing about like living this luxurious lifestyle, like, and yeah, it's like they're, I think in a sense like, oh, like the mom is like so nice and caring, like, it's kind of a shame that like we're, because I think there was like a little bit of like they started to show like a little bit like, I kind of do feel bad because the mom, the Mrs. Park, she's so nice to all of us, despite
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it's like,
Oh,
and
right.
the mom's like, it's like, no, 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 stop thinking about that, like this is our time. The only reason that this lady is nice is because she has a lot of money. She has zero
Right, like
worries.
like the only reason why she's nice because like she doesn't have the worries, of us like regular folk. So she doesn't have like the burdens of us regular folk to worry about. So that's why she's free to be so nice and accommodating or whatever.
Right, yeah,
Not
and that's
understand, but not understanding like the idea is like if you're a piece of shit with $10, then you're gonna be a piece of shit with $10,000.
yeah, and that's the and yeah, and then after that, it's like, then the sister who's drunk, like, she's like, oh, stop thinking about like these other people. Think about us.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about like our problems, and that's kind of like where after that there's kind of a big
Yeah,
like
that's where the
reveal.
turn happens, and I
Yeah.
think we're not gonna get into that today, but
All I had to say is go watch this film. This is easily the best film of 2019, hands down,
mm-hmm.
in my opinion. And I think this is probably the best film I've seen since we watched Burning.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's funny. But I like Burning better than this movie.
really? Okay.
Yeah, not that I didn't like this movie, but I like Burning better than this movie.
I'm still deciding between which one I like better,
Mm-hmm.
but they are both. I mean, these are heavy hitting. These are
Right?
heavy
No,
hitters.
these are like this is like if these two movies were like kaiju monsters, it'd be like really hard to decide who's gonna win.
It's like Godzilla and Rodan. You
But my personal preference, I like Burning a little bit more than I like this movie.
Okay, I still haven't made a decision on that yet.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I have to watch this both movies again.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's still, I mean, I will probably rewatch both of them and like get more things out of it because
Yeah, I
these are
mean,
films
I kind of
you're
want
right.
to watch. I kind of want to watch Parasite again, just because like, I want to go because the first time is always just for enjoyment, or entertainment, but now the second time I have to go back and I have to like really pay attention and try to see any details that I might have missed the first time.
Right. Do we want to give a rating to it, or like, what
I mean,
how
I
are we
guess
gonna do it?
we both watched the movie, and so I guess we still can. We just didn't, we didn't go through the entire movie, but
Or do we want to
I
save
think we
that
still give it a rating.
you
What
want to
was that?
still give it a rating, or is like, did you want to save that for the main podcast when we actually really dive deep into it, or do you want to do
Oh,
the?
actually, yeah, that might be a better idea. Yeah. So if you
So we're
guys
gonna leave
want
you
to,
hanging on.
yeah. So we're a little bit of cliffhanger for you guys, because we do have plans to do a full review, but just on the main podcast. So be on the lookout for that. Um, and if you really want to know what we think about this movie, then again, be be on the lookout for that podcast.
Definitely.
Yes. All right. Is there anything you want to add before we?
I not without giving anything away on the film, so I think it's time to call this episode.
All right. Great. All right, that is the episode for tonight. Again, apologies for not doing this live. What are you gonna do? The government sucks. But yeah, don't forget to if you guys want to know, or if you guys want to know, or if you want to, just wait for the Circle of Jerks main podcast for when we do an actual like deep dive on this movie, and we go more in depth, talking
Yeah, we're
about
gonna
it.
break it down.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna really break it down.
Yeah, really break it down. Really get into the marrow of this movie. So again, be on the lookout for that. But don't forget to come back every Tuesday. Sometimes live. We do this sometimes live. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out the library of shows, Circle of Joy's main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Robert's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow our social media accounts, Twitter at PodcastCOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you, good night, and we'll see you next time. Oh, yeah, don't do anything I would.